Truth that hurts but sets you free. Let's start with a truth that might sting a little. No one owes you anything. Not love, not recognition, not fairness, not success, not even an explanation. I know that can feel like a punch to the chest, especially if you've been trying your best, especially if you've sacrificed, showed up, gave your all, and still feel invisible, unappreciated, or misunderstood. You might think to yourself, but they should have supported me. They should have acknowledged everything I did. They should have treated me better. They should have known how much I was hurting. And maybe they should have, but they didn't. And the longer you carry the weight of what people should have done, the heavier life becomes. There's a quiet kind of suffering that comes not from what we experience, but from what we expected. We expect our parents to understand us, our friends to show up when we're down, our partners to read our minds, our bosses to reward our effort, the world to be fair. And when those expectations collapse, we don't just feel disappointed, we feel betrayed. We start believing we were robbed of something we were entitled to. But here's what the Stoics knew, and what modern life tries to distract us from. Life never promised you anything. Marcus Aurelius didn't expect the Roman Empire to serve him peace on a silver platter. He ruled with discipline and detachment, knowing that power, love, health, even legacy could all vanish in an instant. And Epictetus, born a slave, still wrote about freedom because to him, true liberty didn't come from status or wealth, but from the control of your own mind. You see, the core of Stoicism isn't cold detachment, it's radical responsibility. They didn't waste time hoping the world would owe them fairness. They focused on what they could control: their thoughts, their actions, their virtue, their ability to choose how they respond. And that's the turning point, where your suffering can begin to transform. Because as long as you believe the world owes you something, you will always live in a state of quiet resentment, waiting, blaming, stalling your own growth. But the moment you embrace this hard truth, no one owes you anything. Something shifts. It's not about becoming cold or heartless. It's about becoming whole. It's saying, they didn't show up for me, but I will show up for myself. They didn't see me, but I will stop abandoning myself just to be seen. They didn't appreciate me, but I will build a life I'm proud of, with or without applause. That's real power. Let me ask you something gently. What are you still waiting for? A phone call that may never come? A heartfelt apology that's years overdue? A gesture of love that never arrives? How much longer will you let someone else's lack of response define your worth? Because the more you wait to be given what you think you deserve, the more you delay who you could become without it. You weren't put here to beg for what should have been. You were put here to rise in spite of it. And no, this doesn't mean you didn't deserve better, but it does mean you don't have to be trapped by the pain of not receiving it. You're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to grieve what was missing. But after that, you're also allowed to stand up and say, I choose not to carry this story as a wound. I choose to carry it as fuel. When you stop expecting the world to pay you back, you begin to live with a new kind of freedom. You no longer seek permission to be happy. You no longer wait for others to validate your path. You no longer stay stuck in rooms where you were once ignored. You simply walk forward with clarity, strength, and quiet conviction. So yes, the truth is uncomfortable, but that's exactly why it can set you free. No one owes you anything, and that's not a sentence of despair. It's a call to self-mastery, because when you owe nothing and expect nothing, what remains is yourself. Your values, your inner peace, your untouchable resilience. And that, my friend, is more than enough to build a powerful life. The prison of entitlement. There's a quiet belief that many of us carry, and it's one of the biggest traps of modern life. It sounds like this: I deserve better. After everything I've done, I should be further along by now. Why hasn't life rewarded me yet? People should treat me with more respect. On the surface, these thoughts feel justified, like affirmations of self-worth, but beneath them lies something dangerous: entitlement. And here's the hard truth: entitlement is a prison. It tells you that just because you exist, because you've tried hard, or because you've suffered enough, the world owes you something in return: recognition, love, comfort, success, a happy ending. But life doesn't work that way. You're not rewarded for showing up. You're rewarded for building, for growing, for consistently doing the inner and outer work without guarantees. And that's exactly what entitlement blinds us to. Let's get brutally honest for a second. Have you ever caught yourself resenting someone else's success because you felt like you deserved it more? Have you ever felt angry that someone didn't love you back after you gave them everything? Have you ever looked at your life and thought, this isn't fair, I should have more by now? That's the voice of entitlement whispering in your ear. And while it might feel empowering in the moment, it's actually weakening you. Why? Because the moment you believe that the world owes you anything, you give away your power, you wait, you blame, you expect, and slowly you stop creating, you stop adapting, you stop owning your journey. You become the person who waits while others build. Stoic philosophy draws a clear line between the two. One believes life should conform to them. The other learns how to navigate life as it is and grow stronger in the process. Entitlement makes you a victim of circumstances. Responsibility makes you a student of them. There's a reason Epictetus, born into slavery, became one of the most powerful Stoic voices in history. He didn't wait for the world to give him justice. He didn't believe the world owed him respect. He simply chose to take full ownership of his mind, his choices, and his dignity. And through that, he became free, even when he wasn't. So let's be clear. You can either wait for life to treat you fairly, or you can become someone who thrives even when it doesn't. Because here's the thing the brain doesn't like to admit: blame feels safer than responsibility. When you blame others, you protect your ego. You don't have to change. You don't have to risk. You just get to stay where you are and feel justified in your frustration. But responsibility, that's different. Responsibility asks you to grow up, to admit that while you may not be at fault for what happened, you are responsible for how you respond. Responsibility doesn't pamper you. It challenges you to become who you were meant to be. So ask yourself, where in your life are you quietly waiting for something to be given to you instead of going out and creating it? Where are you hoping to be rescued, discovered, loved into healing without doing the hard work of rebuilding yourself? Where are you secretly hoping that your past pain is enough to earn you a better future without new choices? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about freeing yourself. Because when you drop entitlement, what you gain is clarity. You stop being confused about why people don't show up the way you hoped. You stop expecting life to be fair and start being fiercely focused on your response. You stop measuring what the world owes you and start asking what kind of person you choose to be no matter what. That's not weakness. That's emotional adulthood. That's self-leadership. It's waking up and saying, no one owes me love, but I will become loving. No one owes me respect, but I will live with integrity. No one owes me healing, but I will fight for peace inside myself. This shift doesn't just change how you think, it changes how you move in the world. You stop waiting for someone to see your value, and you start becoming someone you deeply respect. And slowly, the prison door of entitlement creaks open. You don't just feel stronger, you are stronger because you're no longer operating from a place of need. You're operating from a place of sovereignty. So let's bring it back to the core message. No one owes you anything. And that's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of full ownership, of full maturity, of the quiet, powerful kind of freedom that can't be taken from you. Emotional maturity, what the Stoics teach. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt like your peace depended on someone else's behavior? Like your day could be ruined by someone's silence, or their tone of voice, or whether or not they got you? Most of us have been there, and it's exhausting, isn't it? You try to hold it together, but one passive-aggressive comment, one moment of rejection, one ignored message, and suddenly your emotions hijack the rest of your day. You feel invisible, frustrated, powerless, and deep down, maybe even ashamed that your happiness seems so fragile. But here's what the Stoics teach us, something both sharp and liberating. Your emotions are valid, but they're not always trustworthy, and you are not your emotions. Stoicism often gets misunderstood. Some people think it's about suppressing your feelings, becoming emotionless, cold, detached from the world. But that's not it at all. Stoicism is not the death of emotion. It's the discipline of emotion. It's the art of acknowledging what you feel without letting that feeling decide who you are or what you do. As Seneca once said, "No man is free who is a slave to his passions." And that quote, it hits deep. Because if you can't control your anger, your insecurity, your cravings for approval, then you're not free. You're reactive. You're ruled by everything outside of you. Think about that. If someone can press a button and make you explode, they own you. If someone's silence can spiral you into self-doubt, they control you. If someone's attention determines your sense of worth, you've handed them the key to your inner world. That's not emotional maturity. That's emotional dependency. And the truth is, it doesn't matter how intelligent or successful you are on paper. If you don't learn how to master your emotional world, life will feel like a constant storm. So what does emotional maturity actually look like? It's not about pretending to be fine when you're not. It's not about never crying or being endlessly composed. No, real maturity is when you can feel deeply, but act wisely. It's when you can say to yourself, yes, I'm hurt, but I won't lash out. Yes, I feel triggered, but I will pause before I respond. Yes, I feel insecure, but I won't beg for reassurance. It's the ability to create space between what you feel and what you choose. And that's not something you're born with. It's something you build, slowly, daily, deliberately. Let me offer you a simple example. Imagine someone you care about suddenly becomes distant. They don't reply to your message, they seem off. Your mind starts racing. Did I do something wrong? Are they mad at me? Why don't they care like I do? Now pause. That flood of insecurity, that urge to fix, to chase, to control, that's your old wiring. That's the child in you still trying to earn love. But the stoic in you, the adult in you, knows this. You can't force someone to love you. You can't control how others show up. But you can love yourself enough not to crumble when they don't. You can learn to sit with discomfort without making it mean something about your worth. You can learn to validate yourself so you stop outsourcing your peace to people who may never understand you. And maybe that's the most powerful shift of all, to move from needing validation to becoming validation, from expecting others to behave a certain way to embodying your own values regardless of theirs. That's the journey from emotional dependency to emotional mastery. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens every time you choose self-respect over self-sabotage. Every time you choose to pause instead of react. Every time you choose to feel and still act with integrity. So let me ask you again. Are you waiting for someone else to tell you you're worthy? To love you into wholeness? To make you feel like enough? And what if that moment never comes? What if the approval you're waiting for is the exact thing that's keeping you stuck? What if freedom doesn't come when they finally validate you, but when you stop needing them to? This is what the Stoics meant when they talked about self-reliance, not in some cold, disconnected way, but in the most tender, powerful way possible. Self-reliance doesn't mean isolation. It means anchoring your emotions inside your own values, not someone else's behavior. It means becoming so grounded in who you are that the storms outside no longer sink the ship within. It means becoming emotionally sovereign, able to love deeply without losing yourself, to feel fully without becoming enslaved to your feelings. That's emotional maturity, and it's not a finish line. It's a daily discipline. So today, instead of asking, why don't they see me? Try asking, am I showing up for myself? Instead of chasing their approval, what would it look like to stand fully in your own? Instead of reacting, what would it look like to breathe, to choose, and to grow? Because over time, when you build this kind of maturity, you don't just become more peaceful, you become unshakable. Stop begging. Start building. At some point in life, you have to stop begging for what you can learn to build. Stop begging to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved, to be forgiven, and instead, start creating a life so full of value, purpose, and quiet strength that you no longer need anyone's permission to feel whole. Let me give you an image. Imagine someone standing in the dark, reaching out toward others, chasing slivers of light from person to person. They stretch their hands toward affection, recognition, a kind word, a second chance, anything that will make them feel okay again. But no matter how far they reach, the light always slips away. Why? Because the light was never theirs to begin with. Now imagine that same person stopping, taking a breath, and realizing maybe it's time to light their own fire. That's the turning point. That's when you stop living as a seeker and start becoming a builder. Because here's the harsh truth. You could spend your whole life waiting for someone to come back and apologize. You could spend decades hoping a parent will finally be proud of you. You could go to sleep every night aching for someone to choose you, to love you better, to finally see what you're worth. And in doing so, you miss the one person who's always had the power to choose you, yourself. How much time have you lost waiting to be noticed? How many dreams have you postponed because you were hoping for someone else's validation? How much of your energy is still tied to people who left, who disappointed you, who never even understood you? It's a painful question, but it's also an empowering one. Because the moment you realize that begging has never worked and never will, you free yourself to start building something no one can take from you. In Stoicism, the greatest power lies in what you can control, your values, your responses, your actions, your ability to shape your character from the inside out. So here's a simple Stoic practice I want to offer you. 3 questions. Ask them in the quiet moments. 1. What am I currently expecting from others? Maybe it's approval, forgiveness, respect. Maybe it's something as simple as a thank you you've been waiting to hear for years. 2. Can I give that to myself? Can you validate your own effort? Can you offer yourself the closure they never gave you? Can you stop waiting for someone to believe in you and believe in yourself enough to take the next step? 3. If they never respond, who do I choose to become? Who will you become if they never say sorry, if they never return, if they never cheer you on? Will you stay frozen in time or will you rise anyway? Because here's what happens when you stop chasing. You get your power back. You start showing up, not for applause, but because it's aligned with your values. You start working on your goals, not to impress anyone, but because you know they matter. You start honoring yourself, not out of ego, but out of deep earned self-respect. And that kind of self-respect, it can't be faked, it can't be borrowed, and it sure as hell can't be begged for. You build it, one boundary at a time, one quiet choice at a time, one moment of self-honesty at a time. There's a line I want you to remember. The less you expect, the stronger you become. Not because you stop caring, but because you stop needing. You stop being a prisoner of other people's attention spans. You stop making your worth a reaction to their behavior. You stop hinging your happiness on someone else doing what they've already proven they won't. And slowly, something powerful happens. You start to glow from within. You become the source, not the seeker. You become the fire, not the one chasing warmth. And people notice, not because you tried to convince them, but because real power is quiet. It doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't explain. It simply is. So if you're still waiting for someone to make things right, if you're still chasing a version of love or validation that always stays one step out of reach, let this be your moment to stop. Stop begging. Start building. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you finally do, about the right things, about your peace, about your growth, about your time. Because time spent begging is time you'll never get back. But time spent building, that's what becomes your legacy. Reclaim your power through radical responsibility. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop waiting for someone else to fix your life. And that shift, it changes everything. Because when you realize that no one owes you anything, you stop hoping, you stop blaming, and you start building. But here's the part most people miss. It's not just about accepting that the world doesn't owe you. It's about reclaiming the power that comes with that truth. Let's talk about freedom, not the kind stamped on a flag or given to you by a title or a paycheck. I'm talking about inner freedom, the kind you earn, the kind no one can grant you, and no one can take away. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic minds, was born into slavery. He had no wealth, no property, no societal privilege, but he was more free than many of the so-called rulers of his time. Because his mind was his own, his attitude, his response, his integrity. No one could touch that. He once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That's radical responsibility. Not radical because it's extreme, but because it digs deep, beneath your story, your pain, your excuses, and plants you in the one place where growth actually begins: ownership. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Even when it's not your fault, it's still your responsibility. Read that again. Even when it's not your fault. Even when someone else betrayed you, abandoned you, hurt you, you're still responsible for how you choose to respond. You don't get to choose what happened to you, but you do get to choose what happens next. And that's the moment where your real life begins. Let's be honest. Playing the victim feels good for a while. It lets you off the hook. It makes you feel seen, justified, understood. But it also keeps you stuck. Because as long as you're pointing fingers outward, You're avoiding the one thing that can actually change your life. You. Radical responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means believing in yourself enough to say, I refuse to stay broken just because someone else broke me. It's looking at your pain and saying, this wasn't fair, but I'm not going to let it define me. This hurt me deeply, but I still get to decide who I become from here. That's where power is reborn, not in control, but in conscious response. So ask yourself, where are you still waiting for someone to make things right, to come back, to say sorry, to finally recognize the damage they caused? And now ask yourself, how long are you willing to wait? How many days, months, years are you willing to lose in that waiting room? Because here's the truth. Most of the people who hurt you will never make it right. They're not thinking about it. They're not going to show up with a revelation and an apology. They've already moved on. But that doesn't have to keep you stuck. You don't need their apology to begin your healing. You don't need their validation to start rising. You don't need anyone to save you because you're more capable than you think. Radical responsibility is not a burden, it's a key. And once you pick it up, doors begin to open, internally and externally. You start making different choices, you stop trying to fix people, and you start strengthening boundaries. You stop explaining your pain, and you start embodying your worth. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, now what? Because now what is the question that moves you forward. And if you ask it with enough honesty, enough courage, you'll find answers. Answers that don't depend on the past. Answers that don't require someone else to change. Answers that start and end with you. The Stoics didn't wait for the world to be fair. They trained themselves to be strong in spite of the world's unfairness. That's what you're being called to do now. To stop outsourcing your power, to stop waiting for closure that may never come, to stop carrying stories that make you feel powerless, and instead to reclaim your authorship. To say, I didn't choose the pain, but I choose what this pain teaches me. I choose who I become from this. That's radical. That's rare. That's real strength. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Take your power back, not by force, not through blame, but by quietly, steadily taking responsibility for everything you can control. Your healing, your perspective, your energy, your next step, because no one is coming to save you. And that's okay, because the person you become when you stop waiting, that person is unstoppable. Letting go to rise. Powerful conclusion. Picture this. Someone stands alone, not broken, not bitter, not hardened, but still, steady, clear. Their shoulders are no longer carrying the weight of what could have been. Their eyes don't burn with resentment. They reflect a quiet kind of freedom. Not because life gave them everything they wanted, but because they've learned to let go of what was never theirs to control. That person could be you. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood acts of strength. To many, it looks like giving up. It looks like weakness, like surrendering when you should still be fighting. But the truth is, letting go is not weakness. Letting go is wisdom. It's knowing that clinging to expectations doesn't change outcomes. It just prolongs your suffering. It's understanding that no matter how tightly you hold on to the story of who wronged you, who left you, who didn't show up, they still won't become who you wish they were. And more importantly, you won't become who you're meant to be while dragging all of that behind you. So let's repeat the truth that's been quietly guiding us through this entire journey. No one owes you anything, and that's okay. You don't need permission to begin. You don't need validation to be worthy. You don't need an apology to let go. You don't need closure to move forward. What you need is courage. The courage to say, I may not have gotten what I deserved, but I will still live a life I'm proud of. The courage to stop waiting for someone else to see your value and start becoming someone you respect, even when no one's watching. The courage to stop chasing closure and start creating clarity from within. There's a line between pain and purpose, and that line is called choice. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It just says, I'm done letting it define me. Because the truth is, freedom doesn't come when they come back. Freedom comes when you stop needing them to. It's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. Clear on what you can control. Clear on where your energy is being wasted. Clear on who you want to be, regardless of who they were to you. And maybe most importantly, clear on this. You owe yourself more than waiting around for life to be fair. You owe yourself more than another year replaying the same hurt in your head. You owe yourself more than hoping someone else will finally say what you've been dying to hear. No one owes you anything, but you. You owe yourself everything. A life built on courage, not fear. On clarity, not confusion. On conscious choice, not emotional reactivity. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Because letting go means giving up control. Giving up the fantasy that you can fix, change, or rescue someone else. Giving up the false hope that someone, someday, will make things right. But in exchange, you get your power back. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop obsessing and start living. You stop begging and start building. And slowly as you rise. Not with drama, not with noise, but with quiet, grounded, unapologetic peace. So if there's something or someone you've been holding on to, if there's a chapter you've been too afraid to close, ask yourself gently, is this helping me grow? Or is it keeping me stuck? Am I honoring my future self? Or am I just protecting my old wounds? Letting go is not a betrayal of your past. It's a commitment to your future. Because when you let go, you don't lose. You lighten. You clarify. You liberate. And in that clarity, you discover a version of yourself who is no longer waiting to be rescued, but quietly choosing to rise day by day, breath by breath. So let me leave you with this. Life owes you nothing, but you owe yourself a life of courage, clarity, and conscious action. That's your responsibility. That's your power. That's your peace.